Hello students, today we are going to study the first chapter of class 6 history. The name of the topic is what, where, how and when. It is basically the introduction of history. Here first of all we will study what can we know about the past, where did people live earlier, the name of our country India and Bharat, from where does it got its name. We will learn manuscripts, inscriptions. We will learn about all this. So let's start the lesson. What, where, how, and when. Rashida is the name of a girl. The picture of Rashida you can see in your book. Rashida sat reading the newspaper. Suddenly, her eyes fell on a small headline 100 years ago. The girl, as she said, and she was reading a newspaper at the time. She herself, that means, saw a headline in which it was written 100 years ago. How, she wondered, could anyone know what had happened so many years ago? As she saw that 100 years ago, she was very surprised. Would anyone know what had happened so many years back? Finding out what happened yesterday, you could listen to the radio, watch television, read a newspaper. This is about yesterday. You can know it. Last year, ask somebody who remembers. But what about long, long ago? What was happened long, long years back? Let us see how it can be done. What can we know about the past? Past means those days which has gone. There are several things we can find out: what people ate, the kinds of clothes they wore, the houses in which they lived. We can find out about the lives of hunters, herders, farmers, rulers, merchants, priests, craftspersons, artists, musicians, and scientists. See, here, those days, what those people, what they were eating, what kind of clothes they wear, the houses in which they live, what sort of houses were there. People, they do not know this knowledge of houses, food, whatever we are having nowadays. We can find out about the lives of hunters. Hunters, they used to go for hunting, their lives, how they lead their life. Herders, farmers, rulers, merchants, and so on. We can also find out about the games children played those days, what sort of games children they used to play, about that also. The stories they heard, the plays they saw, the songs they sang. This is everything here. Where did people live? Children, they do not have this type of houses, buildings which we have now and we are living. Now let us see, where did people live in those days. Find the river Narmada on map 1, that is page number 2. Let us turn page the next page. That is page number 2. Narmada River. This is Narmada River. This is Narmada River. Here, children, this Narmada River in India map. People have lived along the banks of this river for several 100,000 years. Bank means the side of a river. Here we find people they used to live the side of the river for several 100,000 years. Some of the earliest people who lived here were skill gatherers. Skill they have the techniques to gather food, whatever they required, or other things. They are called gatherers. That is, people who gathered their food. They knew about the vast wealth of plants in the surrounding forest and collected roots, fruits, and other forest produce for their food. So, those people they knew about the vast, enormous wealth of plants in the surrounding forest and collected roots, fruits, and other forest produce. It is for their consumption, for their eating purposes. They also hunted animals. Let us turn to the next page. Now, find the Sulaiman and Kitar hills to the northwest. Let us see, children. Northwest. Our Manipur is in northeast. Let's go to the northwest. Sulaiman Kitar. So, this Sulaiman Kitar, it is they are in the northwest of India. Sulaiman and Kitar hills to the northwest. Presently, it is in Pakistan. Some of the areas where women and men first began to grow crops such as wheat and barley about 8,000 years ago are located here. These Sulaiman and Kitar hills are those places where women for the first time they began to grow crops. If anybody asks you, okay, this one name the places where people began to grow crops for the first time. You have to mark or say the Sulaiman and Kitar hills. It is towards the northwest part of India. Some of the areas where women and men first began to grow crops such as wheat and barley. Remember these two crops also. Wheat and barley, they began to grow here. And it was about 8,000 years ago are located here. People also began rearing animals like sheep, goat, and cattle and lived in villages. So slowly people they started to domesticate animals such as sheep, goat, cattle, and they began to settle village life and lived in villages. Locate the Garo Hills to the northeast and the Vindhyas in central India. Garo Hills, it is in Shillong. So here it asks to locate this Garo Hills. Garo Hills to the northeast and Vindhyas in central India. And Vindhya it is in central India. Central India. Remember children, this Aravallis and Vindhyas, these are the two oldest mountain of India, which will you study in your higher classes. Vindhyas is one such of them. These were some of the other areas where agriculture developed. Vindhyas in central India and Garo Hills to the northeast. These are the other area where agriculture developed. The places where rice was first grown are to the north of the Vindhyas. Rice, the main food crops for us. We are eating rice. So, see here, the places where rice was first grown. Children, underline this and try to keep it in mind. The places where rice was first grown are to the north of the Vindhyas. Rice growing started from here. Trace the river Indus and its tributaries. A river Indus. See here again in page number 2. A river Indus. Indus River. It started from say Jammu and Kashmir and it flows towards Pakistan. Pakistan would be a desert place if there were no Indus River, remember. So how important is this Indus River for those people who are settling there in Pakistan? You can understand here. Trace the river Indus and its tributaries. Tributaries means branches of river Indus. Yes, trees has different branches. Likewise, Indus, its tributaries. Now, tributaries are smaller rivers from main river. If several branches gone, these branches are called the tributaries of the river. Tributaries are smaller rivers that flow into a larger river. About 4,700 years ago, some of the earliest cities flourished on the banks of these rivers. So, this is the story of 4,700 years ago. Some of the earliest cities, any earliest cities you will find Magadha like that, okay? So, these were spread on the banks of these rivers, these Indus rivers and its tributaries. Later, about 2500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of the Ganga. Later, about 2500 years ago, cities it developed. Let's see again in map of page number 2. Ganga River flows from see here from Himalaya up to the Bay of Bengal. This is the mouth of Ganga. It flows like this. So later about 2500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of the Ganga and its tributaries and along the sea coast. The sea coast means the side of the sea is called sea coast. So later cities it developed there. Cities started to settle there. Now let us see the next paragraph, children. Locate the Ganga and its tributary called the Shan. Ganga and its tributary, the Shan. The Shan is one of the tributary. So you in the map of India, you have to locate or mark it. Ganga I show you and Shan River. See in page number 2 again. Ganga, under Ganga you will find that Shan River. So this is the Shan River. It is a tributary of river Ganga. So you have to locate in the map and be clear that Ganga, flowing of Ganga. Anytime you'll find that means in map it asks mark in a map of India river Ganga. So you have to mark it nicely, which is given in your book also, page number 2. In ancient times, the area along these rivers to the south of the Ganga was known as Magadha. Okay, in ancient times, during those days, long back. So, there in ancient times, the area along these rivers to the south of the Ganga, it was known as Magadha. It is old name Magadha. It is the old name. Now lying in the state of Bihar. It is not calling Magadha. So this Magadha, now it is lying in the state of Bihar. Its rulers were very powerful, ruling. Okay, the king like that. He was very powerful and set up a large kingdom. Kingdoms were set up in other parts of the country as well. King where king was ruling, it is called kingdom. So kingdoms were set up in other parts of the country as well. It was set up there in different parts. Throughout, people traveled from one part of the subcontinent to another. This wholly that means people they used to go from one part of the subcontinent to another. Subcontinent, children see this subcontinent. Subcontinent means what? What is subcontinent? Subcontinent is a part of a large continent which is made up of a number of countries that form a large mass of land. So India is called a subcontinent. It has its neighboring countries, Pakistan, then Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Myanmar, Bangladesh, etc. Among those, India is a vast country. So this subcontinent, it goes to India only. Subcontinent to another, the hills and high mountains, including the Himalayas, deserts, rivers, and seas, made journeys dangerous at times. So it was not easy task to go from one place to another. It was full of danger at that time. But never impossible, but it was not impossible, boys. So men and women moved in search of livelihood to survive their life. They used to move from one place to another, though it was dangerous, but it said it was never impossible. As also to escape from natural disasters like floods or droughts. If floods or droughts happened in a place where they were living, so they bound to go another places in order to save their life. Sometimes men marched in armies. Sometimes people they used to go in group. They work in a group, conquering others' lands. Besides, merchants traveled with caravans or ships carrying valuable goods from place to place. So, caravan means caravan, a large vehicle that is pulled by a car. See, here what they used to do. Besides, merchants traveled with caravans where they can cook their food, also live there, or ships carrying valuable goods from place to place, from one place to another. They used to carry their goods. And religious teachers walked from village to village, town to town, stopping to offer instruction and advice on the way. Finally, some people perhaps traveled driven by a spirit of adventure. Here they used to go from one place to another and wanting to discover new and exciting places. They once were there to know the new things. They want to discover new and exciting places. Exciting means causing strong feelings or pleasure and interest. All this led to the sharing of ideas between people. Whatever they done, this all led to share of ideas between among the people. Let's stop here for today. Thank you, boys.